right. So now the question becomes, fellas, who's next? That's what everyone wants to know. Who should we look for as they get towards late spring and then get into the summer and June officials? Who do we think are the best bets to add to Michigan's haul here in the 2024 cycle? Steve, you went with an obvious one a minute ago. I mean, you got Gerard Smith in the mix. When is the last time? And I think you just said it happened recently. But the last time twins were wound up at different schools, it just seems like an unlikely scenario that would be the case here.
Yep. So yeah, Jacob Smith. It was just last cycle the Harris twins out of Florida. But you're right, Sam. I think that's got to be like one of the only times that's ever happened. And Jacob Smith, same top six as Gerard. Jacob Smith, to be fair, prioritized by Michigan earlier and more vigorously for a long time, right? Until Michigan offered, and then they're both top target type guys. But position of need, they still need edge guys. We think they're going to get a few, but I don't know, do they have a pure edge yet in this cycle? I don't even think they do. So lots of reasons why, lots of success in that area. I mean, there's just so many reasons why it'd be kind of hard to almost imagine at this point that Jacob Smith would not end up in Michigan's class at some point. But given we don't know a timetable, he could be for all we know, he could be the very next guy, or he could be the fifth guy on the right. I mean, so that's but just because of all those factors, you have to include him in a potential what's next type scenario, just because there are so many major factors going in Michigan's direction now.
Yeah, I want to throw Channing Goodwin in there, legacy guy. Michigan went on him very early in the process. He was actually the plug to Jaden Davis and all of the Providence Day guys. His dad being a former teammate of Ron Bellamy's. He has shown himself to be a good prospect in his own right. So normally when you talk about, linemen, their kids are normally linemen. And that's not the case with Channing, but you can see there's a physicality to his play. Is why a lot of people thought he could be a college safety, but has really developed himself as a route runner. He's a legit 4-5 guy. He is a contested catch guy. He is a great chemistry with Jaden Davis guy. Has a really, really good offer list. But the number of times he's been to Michigan, it is in his blood. His dad, his uncle, the connection with Bellamy, the connection with Jaden. I see it being very unlikely that a school is able to beat Michigan out for Channing, Brice. So we all have crystal balls in for him. You were the first, Brice, though, to put in a crystal ball for a guy I know you're going to say is on this list is Amarion Stewart, now out of Kenwood Academy in Illinois.
Yeah, 4-star wide receiver, recently transferred. He's been up to campus several times, Sam. His father's a Fab 5 super fan. He's huge. And then Amarion himself is also got a connection with Jay Davis. You talk about Channing, he's got a connection as well. So a lot of and then on top of all that, his connection or his rapport with the coaching staff, especially Ron Bellamy, is super, super strong. So I like where Michigan sits with him. I think we all have a crystal ball for him. I might be wrong, but
no, I recently put one in. I know Michigan like Kenwood Academy, also to see Marquise Lightfoot. So that could maybe help you, kind of regain some ground in that recruitment, where Michigan is obviously in chase mode with Marquise Lightfoot. He's leaning elsewhere, but Michigan's still very much in the mix. Jesse Minner and Mike Elston were in the school recently. And so, the coaching staff there said it was reiterated to them that Lightfoot is a top target and priority, another edge, right? But Amarion, this is another one where, the rankings don't line up with how Michigan valued him. So we just talked about that with Guanera. With Amarion Stewart, and you guys remember this, he came to the barbecue at the Big House camp last year. And coming out of that, it was abundantly clear that he was at the top, at or near the top of their list of receiver targets. So, the rankings don't say what kind of prospect he is for Michigan. Michigan and Steve and we've kind of talked. This is like their guy in this class. Not to say that there are other really good receiver targets, but Omarion Stewart is clearly the guy in this class for them.
Yep, we think he's underrated. And to be fair, I don't think we've said that about every guy that they're recruiting that's not a 4-star, right? And he's one we've been saying it. I think before we even got the idea that he was a Michigan lean. Allen, I'm sure we'll get a good look at him again before the process is over, but explosive. A guy that, I think Sam, the way you put it when he was on campus for the barbecue, right? They put him with all the top guys.
Yep.
Clear as day that he's a major priority for them. And Michigan continues to recruit that greater Chicago area, mostly really well. You mentioned Lightfoot is still a top target. They're probably not going to get Justin Scott, but they've done really well in Illinois. Actually, real quick, Michigan put out a ton of 2025 offers this week. There are 7 4-star defensive linemen in the state of Illinois for the 2025 cycle. So we are going to be probably talking a lot about Illinois for the foreseeable future, because I can't imagine. I think Michigan's offered 6 of those kids too. So it's an area that we're going to be continuing to talk about a lot. But getting Stewart in the fold, you're getting one of your top guys at receiver, right? Maybe like Fred Moore last year. I think Stewart had a little more of a dynamic profile as far as he had some really big offers, some really big schools going after him. I think Moore maybe a little bit more of an under the radar type, but similar in that Michigan's made each of those guys that they made them a top priority early and reeled them in. So put themselves in a great position at the outset. They kind of had to hold off Tennessee was involved for a while and some others, but provided they finish the job here, be another really good early eval and finish on a guy that they identified as a top target right away.
Yeah, they have to. The charge is finishing with Aaron Childs, right? Aaron Childs, very clearly, as you guys heard on this podcast, his dad say, he wanted to commit on his last visit. Like, we had to slow him down and be like, hey, let's do our due diligence. Let's take these visits. But then he added, Michigan is going to be the last visit before he makes his decision. So you love that. If you're Michigan, you got a chance to counter everything everyone else has said to try to overcome your lead, and that the final taste that he'll have in his mouth before he makes his decision is Michigan. This just because Michigan's been leading for a while, you should not lose how big a land this will be, guys. And I think we all have crystal balls in for Aaron, right? Aaron to Michigan, and I haven't seen anyone kind of dispute that to this point. Seems like a consensus at this point, Brice, that Michigan is the big leader for Aaron Childs, the linebacker out of good counsel in Maryland.
Yeah, and I just want to add on top of that, Chris Partridge, man. I mean, George Hilo did a great job with his recruitment to start off with, but when you go from one person to another, sometimes recruitments can fall through the cracks, or they just don't like that recruiter as much. But that hasn't been the case at all with Chris Partridge. He's picked up this recruitment and kind of intensified it to the point where now we feel even more better that usually when a kid says he wants to commit, but does not commit, you kind of are like, is he gonna come back and really commit? But I personally, even if he takes these visits, which he's planning to, I don't have any, I guess, issues with him coming back and thinking, will he? I just feel at this point, if his recruitment, regardless of visits, Michigan's easily the team to beat because of what Chris Partridge has done going forward.
Yeah, CP came in. So Aaron Childs, that recruitment was already pretty far along because, as you stated, George had done a great job with Aaron. He had done a great job with the family. So definitely want to give George his credit and his props there. Jeremiah Beasley, on the other hand, he was leaning elsewhere. At one point, he was leaning into Michigan State. At one point, he was leading to Penn State. At one point, he was leaning into Tennessee. Michigan had ground to make up there. And if he had made his decision early in the cycle like he had initially planned, it would not have been to Michigan. But he decided to delay it. He's going to make his decision at the end of June now, after he takes his officials. But in this window, in this time in between, Michigan has done a fantastic job of growing that relationship. They've gotten him on campus multiple times. They really like Chris Partridge. And I think Michigan leads for Jeremiah Beasley right now. Clearly you do, Steve, because you've already thrown in a crystal ball.
Yep. So Beasley, a recruitment, I think we talked about Hilo setting the table in the Aaron Childs situation. Beasley is one that Partridge, kind of came in right away and made Jeremiah Beasley pretty much the top priority, honestly, at linebacker for the 24 cycle, along with Childs, I think. But Beasley got the bulk of the attention right away because, like you said, Michigan was already in good shape with Childs. It was really about kind of Michigan or Childs feeling comfortable, him and his family feeling comfortable with Partridge. As long as they did that, it felt like Michigan was still going to be in good shape there. With Beasley, Partridge had to kind of come in and sort of not rebuild, but just build maybe, because I don't really know how hard Michigan was recruiting him until Partridge took the job. So, I mean, in-state guy, in-state 4-star guy, you'd be theoretically taking him from Michigan State, who led the crystal ball for a while. I know Tennessee, Penn State, other schools involved there. But, a guy that, we're getting to the point with a lot of positions where it's really feeling like Michigan is getting, if you're Michigan, of course, you want like a Sammy Brown or a Raylan Wilson last cycle. Like those guys you're not going to get those. It's hard to finish the job on those guys, right? But you got 4 or 5 top targets at every position. It feels like Michigan's getting 2 or 3 of those guys at most of the spots, at least at this point so far. And Beasley would fit that mold as far as, again, when Partridge comes in, you're seeing the linebacker board was totally revamped from what it was before. And Beasley immediately became one of those top 2 or 3 guys that he was recruiting. So, a Belleville win, which, I think that's still a thing. I think for fans on our board, at least, that's a big deal. So, but more importantly, getting a guy that they may have been able to get in the first place, but almost let it sort of slide away. The Partridge comes in and seals the deal.
Yeah, you gotta give CP a ton of credit because I just don't sense that he was a big time target on Georgia's board. I mean, the only reason why they even had a chance is because of the relationship with Klink, and Klink keeping that recruitment alive. So when CP comes in and says, "I really like this guy," okay, at least you have something to go on. Otherwise they wouldn't have had a shot to even build the relationship. But CP came in right away saying, "You are a guy that I want to get in with." And so he was on campus very shortly after that, and the relationship between that family and CP has been building ever since. So that's the benefit of a Chris Partridge, of a Klink scale, you go back to Grant Newsome, obviously Kirk Campbell, who we talked about a ton. Even look at Mike Hart with Jordan Marshall. Jay Harbaugh, who we're going to talk about coming up here with Gatlin Bear. I mean, Sharon Moore. Yeah, you made this point last week, Brice. I mean, Mike Elston, who we highlighted in this podcast. Ron Bellamy, who we talked about in this podcast. Relationship builders from top to bottom on this staff. They have made a massive adjustment from the last recruiting cycle. This is just one of the adjustments they made from last recruiting cycle to this one.